But I know that some of you experience a lot of stress because of the student loans that are in your lives. Either it's yours or maybe you co-signed for your kids. We have in the past invited an attorney in town into our studio to talk about that, and Rae Kaplan is back here on WGN. Hi, Rae. How have you been?
Hi. Great, John. Thank you.
There's a lot of things on the sort of docket I want to address with you today, and one of them goes back to a conversation we had last time you were here. Do you mind if I play back a call?
No, not at all.
Okay, so this was last time you were here. We were just doing the usual visit with Rae Kaplan where people were calling in talking about their student debt. And we hear stories from people who call in from anywhere from one woman, $400,000, a
Right.
$250,000 and $150,000 call, and then all the way down to say $30,000 or $40,000. like that's nothing. This was one of the calls that came in the last time you were in our studio.
I, too, have a boatload of Parent Plus loans. I'm wondering, after paying for so many years, I originally started out with about $128,000, and I'm now at $65,000. And my monthly payment is still killing me at $678.
What's your annual income?
It's about $75,000 now with just him.
Hold on. What do you have to say?
Do you also have an income?
Just Social Security and a small pension.
So here's the thing. You actually are eligible for $0 monthly repayment.
Huh?
Yes, because your Social Security and retirement income are not the type of income that, as per the statute, that you're required to have them base the payment on. So because that's your income, now you don't want them to take into consideration your husband's income, and there's a way to apply for that too. You likely are eligible for a $0 monthly repayment until the balance is forgiven. And that's exactly the type of thing that people don't know about, John.
So that was you and a caller on last time you were here.
Right.
You remember that call?
I do.
Did she call you?
Yes, she did. She did. And actually, we see that pretty often now.
Talk more directly into the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We do see that actually more often now, in that we have a lot of people who took out Parent Plus loans. They're retired now, and they have Social Security income, and then they have some other retirement or pension income. And when they calculate their payment plans for their federal student loans, they're not sure what income is supposed to be submitted to allow the servicer to calculate their payment, and they're submitting too much. It's income that's not required to be submitted. So when we recalculated for her, she actually was eligible for a $0 monthly repayment until they forgive the balance.
So what is she paying per month now?
Zero.
She went from $678 a month to zero?
To zero, right. Because her income, if you remember from the phone call, she said she had a very small pension and Social Security. That's her income. Social Security, they're not allowed to take that into consideration for purposes of calculating the payment.
So if she and her husband were paying $600 and some a month, I presume their son or daughter was also paying? I mean, because they co-signed on a loan.
Well, what they did was they took out federal Parent Plus loans.
So does that mean the student doesn't pay, they pay?
Exactly.
This was their loan, in other words.
Exactly. The student's not responsible for it, just the parent.
Maybe the student had some other financing. But
the student did have other financing.
Really?
Yes.
So whatever that poor kid is carrying,
yeah.
The parents were also carrying $168,000 is where she started.
Right. And that's a really tough payment, $670 or so a month on a fixed budget, fixed income, just on Social Security. And a
so you
small
got it down to zero.
We got it to zero.
That is amazing.
Yes, I know. I was very happy about that. And we do see that more and more now. We have a lot of clients where we're recalculating their payment plans, getting them $0 a month. And there's no downside. Their credit's good. They're current and in good standing.
Right. This isn't Chapter 11 or Chapter anything?
No Chapter. It's just non-bankruptcy student loan law.
Okay, the number is 312-981-7200. If you have a question or comment about the student loan debt that you or your kids or grandkids have or you're carrying personally, that's why we're here. The president, I don't know if this was Donald Trump's idea or DeVos's idea, but anyway, the administration has an idea that colleges should have to reveal to students what the prospective earning would be based on the degree they're getting.
Correct.
What's your reaction to that?
I think that that's a good start. There are so many misconceptions and misunderstandings on the parts of people who are borrowing all of this money to go to school. So the new requirement for universities and schools is that they have to show students, let's say you've already chosen your major and your major is going to be, for example, sociology. They have to show you the average yearly income for somebody with that degree. So a sociology degree, let's say that the average yearly income out of school is $35,000 a year. And then they're tasked with making you or illustrating to you that you're going to be taking out probably $100,000 in federal student loans, giving you what the potential monthly payment's going to be. And then you can make a decision. Does it make sense if I'm going to be making $35,000 a year to take out $100,000 in federal loans? Should I choose this major?
Reminds me of the nutrition and calorie information on menus.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but really, I mean, I don't know that that's federally mandated. Maybe in some states it is. But I know that when I walk into a restaurant, on the menu or up on the board, they'll have the calories right there. And if on a menu, they might have the sodium content. And
right.
Some
know
of us
what you're
don't,
getting.
And some of us don't want to see that. But if that makes sense there, it sure as heck makes sense here.
Right. And I one of the other things I run into all the time is that students don't realize that interest continues to accrue even while they're in school. They seem to be under the impression that no interest is accruing while they're in school, but interest starts to accrue right away. So even though it's a fixed interest rate, your loan balance is not going to be the same when you took it out as the day you graduate. It's going to be higher.
There was a bill that failed in New York State this week, and it was if you are a Gold Star child, that is, your mother or father died in service, that your student loan would be forgiven. And it didn't pass, so they decided it was going to be too expensive. I believe that was the thrust of it. Mm-hmm. But there is something akin to this that we were talking about, right?
Right. That's part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, Section 11031. Student loan discharges are no longer taxable income if it's discharged under something called TPD, which is total permanent disability, which just means that you're disabled to the point where you can't work. And if you can have a doctor sign off on that, your entire federal student loan balance will be discharged. Now, you really can't work. And I think there's a period of even 3 years after the discharge is granted where if they notice that you're working, they'll revoke that discharge.
They see you driving a cement truck. Well, this happens all the time with disability claims, but this isn't for veterans per se.
No, anybody.
So, and an injury on the job. What if I just have chronic arthritis and I can't do my job anymore?
Right, then you're eligible for a TPD discharge, and it used to be that you would be taxed on that forgiveness, but now, because of that Jobs Act, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, you no longer will be taxed on that.
Okay, so two things. First of all, I didn't even know that if you're it makes sense, but I didn't know that. If you're disabled and you're having trouble generating income, then the loan's forgiven.
Right.
But in the past, they would say, okay, we forgave $80,000 of debt. We're going to count that as income. Now you owe $20,000 in taxes.
Here's a huge tax bill.
Now they're not even going to charge you the taxes.
Now they're not going to do that.
Who knew that?
Yes, and that bill actually, it expires in 2025, but Congress can renew it. So that's very good news. And also, anybody who gets their loans forgiven under public sector loan forgiveness or teacher loan forgiveness, that is also not a taxable event.
Okay, 312-981-7200 is the phone number. Rae is here, Rae Kaplan from the Kaplan Law Firm. She's been a guest on this show many times. You may have heard her commercials as well. This is not a commercial. This is us asking Rae to come on and talk some more about some of these issues that I know are near and dear to some of you. Rae Kaplan's in our studio, the attorney in Chicago who practices in the area of... is it always student loan relief?
Student loan law, and we also do bankruptcy law. All of the stuff we're talking about today, though, is non-bankruptcy. It's just student loan law.
I think that's a point to make. That's a critical point to me because I think people hate the idea of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe they should. But, look, utilize the laws that are written to your advantage. If you need it, there's no shame in that. Do it. But if you don't have to, don't. That's not even what you and I are talking about today, right?
Exactly. It has nothing to do with bankruptcy.
Derek, you're on WGN Radio. You're on the air. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Talk to us. What's on your mind?
Well, my wife has a bunch of student loans, and she's paying over $750 a month. And I'm just wondering, I think they're private loans. I don't know if there's any way to make them shrink and reduce the interest, anything.
Well, with private loans, it's really a whole different animal. There is no statute that governs just private loans, but a lot of times, so we're pretty much restricted by what's in the contract, and there might be a way to get the payments lowered. We would have to take a look at the contract and see. Another thing that people do, which is getting a lot of popularity nowadays, but, we would have to analyze whether or not it's a good idea for you in your situation. But there is something usually we can do to negotiate a reduced balance, but there's a process to it, and it's not for everybody because it involves possibly defaulting on the loans. But there is a way for us to negotiate a reduced balance on private loans.
So do you have any, is it public loans and private loans? Is that what we're talking about here,
right,
one versus the other?
Right. So we're talking about, in this gentleman's situation, he has a loan with a private lender, maybe Discover or Citibank. The statute that we were talking about before is, total permanent disability discharges. That's only for federal loans. So that's loans that you owe to the Department of Education. And they're usually serviced by Navient, Nelnet, Fed Loans, Great Lakes, those guys.
When you guys went shopping for money for college, Derek, did you think about that? Do you have one of those loans as well?
It was just her. I never went to college.
Yeah, your wife we're talking about here, yeah.
She didn't know. I guess she didn't have anyone help her, and she just went to a place and got student loans and didn't know about federal loans or grants, any of it.
Join the club. I mean, none of it. We're 18, and our parents maybe didn't know anything about this, and they say, hey, here's our bank. We'll loan you the money, or here's the credit card. We'll loan you the money.
Does she have a cosigner on those loans?
No.
Okay. So then that kind of puts her in a better position to negotiate a settlement, too,
Right.
just in that there's not somebody else that's going to be affected negatively.
Derek, good luck to you guys. By the way, the phone number is 312-294-8989.
Yes.
312-294, as in the Tri-State Tollway.
Right.
8989 is what if Mike Ditka were driving on the Tri-State Tollway.
Exactly.
Or just go to your website, which is...
financialrelief.com.
All right, Derek, thank you for the call and good luck to you. Felix, you're on WGN. Hi, Felix. What can we do for you?
Yes, sir. How you doing? Love your show, and
Thank you,
I'm calling just to ask a question. My wife, she's got a student loan, which she occurred before we got married, and she every year has to file for a forbearance because she doesn't work herself.
Oh, well, then she's probably eligible for a $0 monthly repayment without having to use up all of her forbearance and deferments that she's eligible for.
Right, and every time that she calls them, they're always asking them about my income, but my income's the only income coming into the household.
Right, and there's a way to do this under the statute where she does not have to disclose your income. So they can ask, but under the statute, she doesn't have to disclose her spouse's income unless you guys have a spousal federal consolidation loan, which it doesn't sound like you do.
This reminds me of that Social Security call last time.
Yes. It looks like she's going to be eligible also for a $0 monthly repayment. I have a client like that right now who's married to a physician. And she's in a $0 monthly repayment, but that's just the way the statute works.
Wow, okay. All right, that's very interesting. Thank you for listening to my question. I will pass that information on to her.
No problem. And then after a certain period, it's depending on if she's in the private sector or public sector, she's going to be eligible to get the balance of the loan forgiven, even though she's made 0 payments. So definitely something to check
Correct.
out. Yep.
312-294-8989. You're going to remember that number, Felix?
I wrote it down, John. Thank you very much. Love your show.
I appreciate it. Listen, I just... And I don't need to editorialize here. Good luck to you. 312, I somehow feel punished for absorbing the $200,000 cost of my son's college education so he could graduate debt-free. I somehow feel punished for absorbing the $200,000 cost of my son's college education. I don't know. What you have something to say to that?
Well, I would say don't despair because it's highly likely that the payment can be reduced to something that's so manageable if it's a federal loan that you won't feel like you're being punished anymore.
Okay, we're out of time. There was one other thing, though. Did we get to?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Under that Jobs Cut Act, they also set aside $350 million for, you remember those articles in the New York Times where everybody was being denied public sector loan forgiveness? Well, this is specifically for people, it's earmarked for those who met the requirements for public sector loan forgiveness otherwise, but happened to be in the wrong payment plan. So if you had the wrong payment plan and you were denied, it's worthwhile now reapplying, and we can also help with that, or you can do that on your own, but there is money set aside for those people to get their loans forgiven.
One last thing here, just real quick, Ray, 630, what is teacher loan forgiveness, exclamation point?
So there are some requirements, but you have to work for a public school, and you get at least $17,500 knocked off the balance of your loan if you work for full-time for a public school. I believe there's also a requirement as to the subject that you teach. It has to be math or science related.
But isn't that true about firefighters? Anybody that works in the public sector, isn't it?
Yes, but there's another special category for teachers who work in the public sector who get an additional. So let's say we're working with $50,000, we can knock that down to by another $17,500 and then recalculate the plan based on that new low balance.
Isn't it interesting that it's very easy to get your hands on the money? It's this labyrinth of rules and regulations and hoops to get some sort of debt forgiveness.
Right.
That's why you're there. Rae Kaplan, the website is
financialrelief.com.
And the phone number is 312-THINK-CHICAGO, 294-THINK, hey, I'm driving down the Tri-State Tollway, 294. Who's sitting next to me?
Mike Ditka.
8989. Thanks, Rae. It's nice to see you.
Thanks, you too, John.